I want to open this conversation with a thought of just how amazing it is to be in this business our entire lives and how much we really don't know. That's from a quote from Mickey Mantle that starts off the book, Moneyball. How many people in the room have either seen the movie or read the book, Moneyball? All right, so the majority of folks. So I've been doing a series of interviews called Moneyball Mortgage. And I can tell you, as someone who's been in this business for over 38 years, interviewed literally thousands of leaders in the mortgage industry, it's amazing how much I didn't know until I started doing this series of interviews. Today, again, my name's Dave Savage. Today we have two amazing leaders who have been playing Moneyball Mortgage their entire careers, data-driven leaders, and we want to start a conversation with the industry here. James, if you don't mind just giving a little bit of a backstory on your role.
Thanks, Dave. Great opportunity to be here, and Housing Wire for having us. I guess I didn't know I was a Moneyball leader until you told me that, but you just kind of instinctively do it. But James Hecht, I run production for New Res. Have the privilege of leading almost 2,000 salespeople across our retail channel, joint ventures, wholesale, and direct-to-consumer. And just a great time to be in our business and help people adapt to what will be a different market. And we'll talk a lot about that today.
Yeah, and I just want everybody to really think about that. Multiple channels, multiple lenders. And one of the things that distinguishes James and why we asked him to be part of this conversation is he's been data-driven. He's been playing Moneyball Mortgage, and we'll unpack that a little bit more over this conversation. Brian?
Thanks, Dave. And again, thank you. And I want to thank Clayton and the Housing Wire team for what's been a great conference. We should give them a round of applause, I think. So for those of you who don't know me, and I think about half the room probably does or used to work with me or for me over periods of time, but I've been 41 years in the business. I ran Countrywide's largest division for a number of years, the prime retail division, MetLife, Stearns. Today, I am a consultant. I have my own firm, Mortgage Advisory Partners. And I work on advising CEOs, boards, senior executives on a variety of topics from strategy, cost reduction, revenue enhancement, and most recently M&A as well as executive placement. And I'm pleased to be here.
Also want to call out back in the day when Brian was in the street as an originator, he used to do over 1,000 loans a year in his market. So again, a lot of seats in the bucket are in the business and has a unique perspective. So let's start with, what does Moneyball Mortgage mean to you, James?
You know, Dave, there's so many different ways you could go with it. And as I said, it's one of those things you think about the movie and you think about how you lead and you're like, okay, that makes sense. I guess that's what you're doing. But what it really just comes to is, I think it first starts with everybody has data. Right. The word has now become, everybody has it, everybody talks about it. The difference is, do you actually have the discipline to use the data, to learn from the data, and then help and coach your team with those insights? And that's really, we can go a lot of different directions with that, but when you really come down to what it means to me is taking the information, working through it, identifying those insights, coaching, training, and then putting the discipline in place to make sure that you're continuously looking and adjusting.
Perfect.
Yeah, to me, it's, if you look at the sense of Moneyball and what it did, it revolutionized modern baseball. Frankly, a number of other sports have embraced it. A lot of companies embrace it. Our industry tends not to embrace it quite as much, which is breaking data down to its smallest granular level and then reaggregating it and understanding what the data is telling you in the process. And I think to James's point, a lot of people have data, although companies I go into constantly tell me, I ask them about different metrics, about how they assess their originators from a profitability standpoint, from a productivity standpoint, who's making the money, who's losing money for them, those kinds of things. And I often get the answer back, well, we don't have that data. Mm-hmm. About 100% of the time, they almost always have the data. It's either not well organized or not well formatted in a way that senior management can make decisions. And by the way, I don't want to talk about this just from the company's perspective. A lot of what you and I've talked about in the past is helping originators understand their economic value to their employer, which I think gives them immense power if they are very valuable by doing all the right things as well as doing volume. And if you understand that you are losing $5,000 a loan for your employer on every deal you trade, you might understand better the fact that they're trying to coach you, right? So I think it comes at it from both ends, from the corporate senior leader, executive, owner level, as well as from an originator or producing branch manager, those kinds of things. And I think a big mistake the industry makes sometimes is aggregating data in a way, and I said this to you yesterday, that I had a mentor early in my life who told us that the statistical term averages were statistics for the weak of mind, right? That if you used an average, he would light you up, right? Because it's the old thing about averages, if you've got 1 foot in the fire and 1 foot on ice, on average, you're okay. Not really, right? And so understanding the granular aspects of data and being able to format them in a way to make decisions. And then, of course, the last piece, and it's what you see in the movie, is the courage to make those decisions.
Right. So there's a lot of aspects of Moneyball Mortgage, but I really want to drive something that I think is important. We have a profitability crisis in the mortgage industry right now. Not enough lenders are profitable, and not enough lenders have been profitable quarter after quarter after quarter. We believe, after some of the conversations we've had, everybody can be profitable. And so my first Moneyball interview was with Jim Deitch, the author of Strategic Transformation of Mortgage Banking. Great book, check it out. And he top-tiered loan officers in a way that I had not seen it done before. Brian has seen that done and has been doing a version of that his whole career. And he tiered loan officers not based off of their production, which is what we typically do. How many loans did this loan officer close? What's their volume? And we have a leaderboard. In fact, that is where loan officers go every day. Like, where am I at? Who's number one? And he top-tiered based off of top tier profitability. And in the anonymized case study in the interview that we did, they were top-tier loan officers were about making $2,000 per loan. Middle tier, in the anonymized case study, it was like they were losing about 300, but he's like, usually they're making a couple hundred to losing a couple hundred. And then bottom tier, and they're losing, the number Brian just said, $5,000 a loan.
You're talking about losing to the company, right?
Yeah, losing to the company.
Right. Making or losing
yeah,
to the
the
company.
contribution of profit to the company. And what I have come to find out, this is like the way it is in the industry. Like, this was not a unique, anonymized case study. So what I want to solve on this stage right now are what are the metrics the industry should be measuring? How should we be top-tiering loan officers? And so with that said, how are you top-tiering loan officers, and how do you think we should be going forward if we want to be profitable today and going forward?
The first step, and it's a great point, the first step is leaderboard, right? If you're a top originator, the first thing you go to is your volume, right? Everyone wants, that's how the league tables, you do have some debates, units versus volume, and we always get into those, but the reality in our business is volume alone will kill a company, right? Volume without understanding the discipline around and the profits, how to turn that volume into profit. So what I find as we look at originators, number one, you have to teach and how you evaluate them. You can look at it, every company has to look at, whether it's their revenue, whether their concessions, expenses, all the different components to rank them, and we can go through that. But it first starts with making sure those originators know where they stand, right? Where do they stand?
Transparency.
Transparency. Full transparency, not, here's what your P&L for your branch looks like, or your P&L for your region. Here's what the company's economics look like. Here's the cost basis, here's the revenue, and then how does your segment of business, your book of business, look on those metrics? And that's step one, it can be very shocking in a good or a bad way, but you've got to be able to sit down.
Sometimes you run the math and go, damn.
And explain it. Yeah.
Right.
And I think too often, companies will say, you know what, I'm gonna deal with that at leadership level, and I'm gonna look at that, but I'm gonna try to work with the originators and turn the knobs and fix it without showing them the information and being transparent. I think that's really where it starts.
Right. What are your thoughts on that, Brian? What are the measures?
First, I agree with everything
and
James
metrics?
just said. Obviously, volume, units, all those things are obvious, right? They're givens. If you're doing, one loan every 7 months, whether you need to or not, conversation probably doesn't need a lot more data after that, right? But to the degree that you have normal distribution of production across the sales force, right? Now you need to understand revenue per loan, price exceptions per loan, product mix. Is 60% of their book bond loans? that you tend to lose $7,000 a loan on because you have to close the thing 3 times in order to get the documentation right? So it could be that they're up on stage getting a plaque for all their volume, and you as a company are writing a check every time they close a loan. And of course it's complicated because we're a relationship business. And so that guy or gal may be the cousin of the branch manager, right? And so, wow, we're gonna this could be a difficult conversation, right? The key to that is understanding those numbers. And I think the second piece I would say, Dave, nobody wants data like this. Meaning, if I bring James as running the divisions that he runs, a data stack like this with pages and pages and pages of data, not helpful. It's not helpful.
Right.
If I can get it on 1 page, I can get it on 2 pages. If I can show him the frequency of PEs, the level of PEs, the stratification of PEs, who's doing it with what product mix and what's the outcome by loan officer, now he has something to make decisions off, right, in that process. We do this as a company, we do this with clients all the time, is help organize their data into KPI reports that management can actually decide on, but also that you could sit down with a great originator with maybe 2 small tweaks. The originator may be completely oblivious to their economic contribution to the company, and you sit down and explain complete transparency, I love that word, sit down and say, look, here's what's actually happening here. If you could make these 2 tweaks, you'd go from the bottom third to the top third. I love you like a brother, but I need to not write a check every time you close a loan, right? And that's just, it's not an unreasonable ask is my point. And the conversation, and it's the old saying of, it's not what you say, it's how you say. My dad used to have this great saying, right? You can tell a man to go to hell one way he looks forward to the journey and the other way he takes a swing at you, right? I mean, it's, right? And so how you deliver that, how you back it up, it's not just BS, it's data in a way that both the originator and the leader can understand it and relate to it, right?
Yeah, I just add 2 points on that. So something, Brian should put a patent on this, but he talks about, all of what he just said. The other problem people forget is they put this in place, they look at it in May, and then they wait and they look at it again in June,
right.
Maybe. You have to look at it daily, right? This stuff, this product, product mix change, take any element of that, it's changing so fast, and just when you think you've got somebody on the right track, something goes the other way. And so Brian has a saying, looking out the windshield, right, versus the rearview mirror. Our business, our industry is a rearview mirror business. It has been that way, right? Yes. The P&Ls come out, okay, hey, let's take a look at June, but we're now in July, right? And that used to be okay for many years. It doesn't work anymore. And so I think looking forward and continuing to address it. And just one other point I would add is back to the transparency and everything you laid out. As leading originators, whether it's wholesale, retail, JV, every one of them every day gets called for, by a competitor, right? Probably by some in the room. And so a big part of it is retention. When you think back to this data and the transparency, laying it out for them so that they know what they look like at our company actually is a way to retain them. Yes. Because otherwise they're going to make a mistake and they can at least ask the questions if they're being recruited. And oftentimes I've had people come back and say, James, because I knew where I stood, I almost fell into a pitfall with someone else over there. That doesn't mean we retain everybody.
We made a bad decision, right? And I think, by the way, the best originators I've ever had the good fortune of the 35, 40,000 originators I've had the fortune to work with through my life, the best want to know.
Yeah.
They want to know because they're professionals, they want to understand their business, and they want to know their contribution. Because, by the way, if James Hex is an originator for me and he's making me $5,000 a loan, James has a lot of leverage in his conversation with me, right?
Right.
Love you, man. You're not going anywhere, right?
Right.
If it's the other end, and you have to take all that in, the rest of the costs, loan officer assistance, all these other costs that get buried in. And if you exclude all that, you're really lying to yourself, right? As a leader, and you're lying to them in terms of transparency.
So I want to try to build out a playbook in this last 15 minutes and take a note and audit your own organization. Are you looking at the metrics that matter most when it comes to profitability per loan in the, out the front view mirror or out the rear view mirror? And are you able to measure these things in a real-time basis so that not only can you drive the most profitable and efficient organization you can today, but as things scale, and we will get to a bottom and things will scale again, you could grow even faster, you can even dominate more in the market. So let's break down some of the metrics. So when I did the interview with Jim, and I asked him, what is the biggest difference between the top tier and the bottom tier? He said, pricing concessions and conversion. And when you really start to break down all the leakage from a loan manufacturing process, forget about the leakage at the top of the funnel, not monitoring a database, which is 4 times the value of in the funnel. I make the case, and tell me how you would edit this, that we need to flip the script and take loan production and units, put that at the bottom, still measure it, it's still very important, but conversion, pricing exceptions, product mix, and above the funnel retention. What are your thoughts on those 6 metrics?
I do agree with them. I also would add to that basis points, dollars per loan, right? Too much in our business on any one of those metrics, people tend to skew one way or the other. And in today, think just with home appreciation and loan balances, right? We saw today everybody's going to 750 now, right?
Right.
And so the reality of it is loan balances are up, commissions, revenue, everything is historically measured in bips, but on these larger loan balances, you can't get swayed into one or the other. A good disciplined approach is taking those metrics and looking at both and understanding how they play against each other. So that I would add, the metrics are right, adding that to it, and then the other piece on top of the whole thing is each company, the way they measure those, you've got to make sure that the definitions are right.
Yes.
Right.
And that very clear on what we're referring to. Where does fee revenue come into that versus your gross margin, obviously by product, et cetera.
Love that. Brian, anything to
Yeah,
add?
first of all, again, I agree with everything James just said. I would just add to that, this is a little bit outside the company, but where if you're thinking about trying to help a good originator in what is an unbelievably difficult market, right? I'm 41 years in, you're 38 years in, James is like 200 years in, or he just holds his age well.
Between the two of us.
Yeah, he holds his age well,
3
right?
of us.
A little tweak in someone's business model can be huge. And part of that, when I think about data, I think about external data to an originator. We have these services out there. You do it, MMI, others do it. I was just at a conference 3 weeks ago with 3,000 of the top 1% of realtors in America. For 3 days, they talked about how they're rebuilding their businesses and dealing with this current environment. But here's the killer stat. Top 1.5% of realtors in America in 22 did 68% of all transactions in America. The top 2% did 74%. The top 10% did almost 90% of all transactions. So I would ask, if I was trying to help you and coach you as an originator, tell me your referral sources. Tell me how you're doing with, let's go take a look in through one of these systems and identify if you're calling on the bottom 50% of realtors in America, and there's 3 million realtors in the US, if you're calling on that bottom 1.5 million, you could have the best price, the best service, the greatest brand, you're a fabulous looking guy, whatever it is, 0 loans today. There's no sales. And so you want to help on all the metrics we've discussed, help the originator target to people who actually sell real estate as opposed to just being in real estate.
Love
and that
that.
consolidation is accelerating dramatically.
Yeah, well, it's happening also in the mortgage space.
Yes.
You're seeing the best are getting better. So I want you to write down 2 words that James just said, basis points and dollars. So I'm going to give everybody a quick tip how to reduce your price concessions right now. So according to Optimal Blue, right now, the average price exception in America is 80 basis points. Does that mean everybody in this room is at 80 basis points per exception? No.
Oh, wait, Dave, can I just add? 80 basis points is
Average.
it's average, first of all. So it's a lot higher, right?
Right.
The average origination company, IMB in the US over the last 10 or 15 years, would have been ecstatic to make 60 basis points in a
Right.
year, right? So it just gives you a sense of how volatile that number is.
Yeah, and just how valuable that is. And here's what I know in a data-driven way. 50% of those exceptions are needless. If loan officers just start quoting rates, when they deliver rates, they show options. And in a market like today's market, where we all know rates are going to come down within the next 12, at the latest 24 months, what is the dollar cost between, like when I'm competing with a credit union that's a 0.5 point less, what is the dollar difference over 12 months? And instead of negotiate with basis points, 1/8 in rate, 1/4 in rates, 3/8 in rate, what if you started negotiating price exceptions with dollars? Hey, that's gonna, that lender and that 0.5 point is $2,000 over the next 12 months better than what I'm offering? What if I paid $1,000 in concessions? That's going to be a lot less than basis points. Any thoughts on that, guys?
No, I think it's fully true. And when you think at the end of the day, we always forget consumers still don't know how to shop for mortgages, right?
Yeah.
So they default to the interest rate, and continuously we fall into the trap, right? Of oh, we're at what rate quote you got? Okay, we're here, and you come in under. The reality of it is, right, you've got to go back, and you've talked about this, for your entire career, is it's, how do you turn it into a relationship? How do you talk about all the elements? And I think what you're making the point of dollars, again, versus talking about, quarter point, eighth of a point, makes complete sense, because that's what actually delivers what that customer has to bring cash to close, right? At the end of the day, when they're getting that cashier's check, they're going to forget what the eighth or whatever on the rate ended up. It's all about those dollars, and I think that's a really important point.
Dave, could I just add, and I mentioned this to you yesterday, I have a client, just to give you a profile, $1.5 billion distributed retail, IMB here in the US, right? 9-year-old company, like a lot of entrepreneurs in this room, run by a couple of guys who started this company. One of the things they realized last year is that if you are an originator who joined the industry in the last 20 years, you've never sold discount points as part of your discussion with a consumer, a seller, a realtor, a home builder, or any of those. You've quoted a par price. And maybe you came to your boss and said, hey, James, man, I need another eighth or something to get a deal done against my competitor or that kind of thing. But there is no premium pricing today. Many companies are struggling to quote a par price because of the weird things going on in the capital markets. By the way, people are staying in their houses much longer, 11 years now instead of 5. You pay 1.5 points as a home buyer, and you got to be careful with TRID and all the rest of the stuff, so put all that out there. It could be absolutely 10-to-1 payback for you paying some points or trying to get your seller to pay some points or whatever the case may be. But as an originator, if you don't have the skill set or the confidence to do that and a way to explain it to the consumer mathematically, and you're not well versed and trained, I've just discovered through my life, salespeople will not sell what they're not confident in, right?
Right.
This guy spent 3 months teaching his entire sales force how to sell discount points. His PEs went from 80 down to 20, like that, right? And that skill set, it's like, yelling into the wind, right? I mean, he was having the same conversation. Why are we doing it? It was because nobody wanted to quote the 1 point price or the 1.5 point price. They'd PE it away, and it impacted his revenue. That one change, he's profitable year to date this year. He was profitable last year.
Yeah. So I think the other, just real quick on that, the piece that you're talking about is, well, what we're really saying here is originators educating the consumer,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And when that consumer is educated, they're going to
your
go
whole
back.
Career.
Yeah, that's it. They're going to go back and they're going to tell their realtor, they're going to talk to their builder salesperson, whoever referred them, and say, boy, thank you, because so-and-so, they explained to me every aspect of the loan, how the pricing works, how my dollars are going to work, how that's going to impact me over time. That's the beauty.
Look, I've said this my whole career. I've had a lot of titles as CEO and president and board members and those things. The title I've been most proud of in my career was salesman, because I think it's a skill set. I think you have to train it. You have to make yourself a professional. And if you're not doing that, and I know, Dave, that's what your firm's all about, right? Trying to give people tools. But to that degree, you have an obligation to train yourself, right? And to know, how to deliver these things in this difficult market. And as companies, sometimes we get focused on the problem and not the solution.
So I'm going to quote Ron Stowers, the Chief Strategy Officer for Homeowners Financial Group out of Scottsdale, Arizona. We had breakfast a couple days. And Ron, this is the last time I'm giving you credit for this.
You gave him credit all day yesterday.
No, we talked yesterday
day.
and I gave you credit,
right.
but we're public. Like, this is my story going forward.
All right. It's on tape, man. He's going to live.
But he told me, hey, Dave, the entire career, my career, your career, executives, loan officers, we've run downhill. Rates have gone down and they've gone down and they've gone down. And we're all a bunch of really good downhill runners. And you know what? Rates hit the bottom. 63% of mortgages start with 2 or 3%. They're never going to start with 2 or 3% again. 80% are 4% or less. And we might get into the 4s again. The most optimistic people think we do. Guys, going forward in the mortgage industry, we got to be great uphill runners. It takes a different mindset. It takes a different skill set. It takes different technology. It takes Moneyball Mortgage. And here is the deal. Everyone in this room can work for extremely profitable companies in the market right now. And we got to measure what matters most: conversion, profitability, product mix. Making sure that. And by the way, loan officers love to compete. Like, give them a new game to play. And the new game is who's got the best conversion rate and the most production, who has the least concessions and the most production. Like, we've got to change the game. So guys, we're getting close to our time. I want to make sure.
I thought that meant 4 hours down here.
Yeah. No, I think we got 4 minutes.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
let's share some closing thoughts. And then let's also speak to the fact, like, why aren't more lenders, more leaders playing Moneyball Mortgage? Why don't you go first, James?
So it goes back, it's hard.
It's hard.
Running uphill, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
We're going to keep giving credit. And I think many have the intent, and then life happens, right? Distractions, right? You're dealing with running a mortgage bank, mortgage company. It is a complicated business, and distractions occur. And I think the winners on the other side of this are those that can stay the course, hold discipline, and make sure, number one, it's transparent, as we talked about. Two, every leader in the organization understands, knows where to get the information, and knows that playbook that you talked about. Because once you get in, we all know in our habit, right? We all certain reports you look at every morning, and once you get into that discipline and you do it for 30, 45 days, then it starts to drive into the organization. But I think we still have to go back. It's hard, and we've got to have that discipline.
Right.
I would agree with James. It comes down to getting your data organized, getting it repetitively. It was a day in my life in the last 3 organizations I ran. I had a report delivered to my desk every morning electronically of every price exception in the company, 50 basis points or greater. Miraculously, about 99% of my price exceptions after that, as people found out I had that report because I used to call, were 49 basis points or less. Right? Stay the hell off his report, you're going to get a phone call, right? Kind of thing. Those kinds of things work because I think people are competitive. People want to do the right thing. We've got to help them do those things. And then secondly, getting your data organized in a way that you can make decisions, formatted in a way, transparency of the data. I see companies all the time that don't want to share the data because they go, well, it's not great data. Yes, I know. Ergo the problem, right? Let's share the not great data and then help people understand where would we like this data to be. Put a goal column next to whatever your actual results are. What's the goal? What's the piece that we're all trying to build to? And then manage that daily in the process. To James's point, if you're waiting 45 days after close of a month to find out how your metrics and your P&L and your PEs and your revenues came out, too late. It's too late. You can't do anything about it. It's in the books.
Yeah. So here's a closing thought. So I had a conversation with an executive recently, and we have the data. Like, there is a best way to negotiate a price exception, and the data proves it. Like, this is how we do it. And I asked him, why don't you just, when a loan officer comes to you, says, I want an exception, why don't we hey, did you follow the 3 steps that are best practices? And they're like, oh, that would be hard. To require loan officers that would be hard. And here's my push to the industry. Well, what's harder? That or being unprofitable, laying off? Like, let's face it, everyone that's left in this business is good. We don't want to lose these people. Like, we're cutting bone when we continue. What's tougher, cutting bone and laying off people? Or, by the way, working really hard and barely being profitable? What's harder, that or starting to play Moneyball Mortgage? Like, know everybody's conversion, know everybody's exceptions on a real-time basis. Having marketing systems that allow you to identify who needs help and put training on them. What's harder? So guys, 30 seconds each, closing thoughts.
We didn't talk a lot about it. We referred the top of the funnel. Everything we talked about, once you have the loan, apply the same thing for those, your credit pulls and past customers, and back to the running uphill. We keep saying it. people have forgotten, originators have forgotten, right, how to stay in contact with those. And it's very simple, but again, it's hard. It's that discipline. And so the best thing that we can do, everything we're talking about with the data, once you have a loan in the door, apply it to everything above the funnel, and that's how we help our teams get more loans.
And I want to make sure that really connects. So just about every company we go into and we look at in the funnel conversion and price exceptions, they're losing at least 40 basis points unnecessarily. Millions in profit. You take above the funnel because they're not monitoring their database and taking action on it, 4x?
Yeah, 4x.
4x. So if you're losing 2 million here, there's 8 million above the funnel. Closing thoughts.
Yeah, well, I was just going to mention that, so you took my closing thought, but I would just say this. The reality is that, look, as a company, we do this for our clients all the time. You don't need to invest millions upon millions in these really sophisticated reporting systems. If you have them, great. Are you using them? Are your people looking at them? Do you have a common vocabulary so everybody understands what you're talking about? The rule of 50. You have to tell people things 50 times, another 50 times, another 50 times, and about then they go, "You talking to me?" Right? Right? Because
I never understood that like that before.
Look, people have busy lives. They have a lot going on. They got families and kids and parents and vacations and all these kinds of things. You got to pierce that noise with salient data that they can relate to, that's organized in a way where they can get it and be transparent about it. Then you have to do it over and over, and it's laborious. So, why do people not do it? James nailed it. It's hard and running uphill, which should be clear to the audience. James is the only runner on stage. He actually understands running uphill because he does it every day. I don't, but it's hard, but it's necessary. And maybe a little bit, one last passing thought, forget the difficulties of today. Clearly it would help today. You install those disciplines into late 24 and 25 and beyond. I am wildly bullish about our industry over the next 10 years. There is a demographic wave coming at us that'll wash us all out. We're going to have far less competitors. The banks have clearly retreated, right? There's a lot going on in the IMB space to be unbelievably excited about. Now it is survive till the sun shines again, and it will. We can debate when. Do these things, and those disciplines will improve your productivity and your profitability well into the future. You'll be happy you did.
That was Brian Hale. So folks that know Brian Hale, let's go.
Look, Jay made the point, we need everybody in this industry. We don't need 2 lenders in this industry, or like Canada, 10 lenders, that's it. It's not good for consumers, not good for anybody in this room. We need healthy competition. We need people to survive and thrive.
Love that. And this man is a realist, so when he's excited about the future, I think we all should be excited about the future. So here's a closing thought. Guys, there is a financial literacy crisis in America. There is an affordability crisis in America. You heard Shant Badoshian yesterday talk about what's his strategy to bring affordability strategies to consumers. And everything that we're talking about, like the loan officers that have the highest conversion rates, you know what? They're connecting with people and they're solving the affordability crisis. They're educating people beyond the transaction. Like we can literally be the heroes, the first responders, and really solve the financial literacy crisis, but we've got to go beyond the transaction. We got to play Moneyball Mortgage, and we need to do what's hard. We got to train our loan officers to do more than just, I can close your loan on time, here's your rate, I keep my promises. We have to do more. So gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah. Thank you.